So if you look at the Pac-12 tournament bracket, it's fairly interesting, and it's a tournament. It's a conference that's been pretty wide open. I thought that Arizona had some things figured out, and I think I tweeted over the weekend, "Drunk me, Arizona has some things figured out 4 hours ago." 4 hours later, drunker me, that was drunk me. It doesn't count because they lost at home to Washington, who seems to really have things figured out. Quade Green not coming back for the conference tournament, which really hurts, losing their point guard. But this is a team that just swept at Arizona State and at Arizona. They were one of the almost, the unluckiest team maybe in conference play history. Just lost so many games by 1, 2 in overtime. So Washington is on a roll, but they start with Arizona in the 12-5 game. And Arizona's potentially, if they can put it all together, a top 10 team. That's a brutal draw for Washington. And on top of that, Washington, they run a zone. Arizona just saw that zone, right? The unique zone, and they get to see it again. That'll help the familiarity factor. From an odds perspective, well, I guess from a format perspective, the top 4 teams do get a bye, and this is in Vegas. Starts on Wednesday. Oregon's the 1 seed. USC is the 4 seed. They both get a bye. They're in the top half of the bracket, along with Oregon State and Utah. The winner of that game will face Oregon. Arizona, Washington winner will face USC. The top half of the bracket is really loaded. The bottom half is wide open. You have UCLA as the 2 seed, who surged late in the year and somehow got the 2 seed. Arizona State, a very vulnerable Arizona State team, is a 3 seed. Stanford is a 7 seed, who could arguably be the best team in this bottom half, along with Colorado. They don't have a bye. So you would presume Colorado gets by Washington State, but Colorado away from home has just been a nightmare, but the talent is there. Colorado gets by Washington State, they'll play Arizona State. If Stanford gets by Cal, they'll play UCLA. Bottom half looks pretty wide open. Oregon is the favorite at plus 175. Arizona, despite being the 5 seed, is the second highest odds at Westgate, plus 350. Colorado, plus 450, even though they don't have a bye. So you can see these teams who don't have a bye, 2 of the 3 are listed as the favorites behind Oregon. Colin, what do you see here?
Utah didn't win a single game on the road in conference this year. So I think I'm going to take Oregon State to get into that first game against Oregon. And they beat them in Corvallis in early February. The Beavers are the best free throw shooting team in the Pac-12, and they rank 31st nationally in point distribution from the free throw line. So I think that they're a good candidate to cover against Oregon, but not necessarily, beat Oregon. When you got Tres Tinkle, you should have a good chance to cover this game. But I think Oregon's going to get by there. The Washington-Arizona, you mentioned it. This is the second time Arizona will see a zone. That Washington game, they hit 15 of 17 free throws. They had 11 steals. That's very, very uncharacteristic of an Arizona team that ranks top 10 in the country in offensive steal percentage. They just don't give the ball up whatsoever. And to give up 11 steals to Washington, I don't expect that to happen again. So it's going to be hard for me to take Washington in this one, and so Arizona's having a problem closing out games. So I think they're very vulnerable here. USC, I don't have any love for either. They're on a 3-game, winning streak, all at home. They have 3 conference wins on the road, and it's just not a team I want to back long term. They're last in free throw percentage and offensive steal percentage. They're the best 3-point defense in the conference, but that isn't the primary source of points that Washington or Arizona goes to get their points. So USC's best part of their defense isn't exactly what Washington and Arizona do. So I don't like USC to advance. I think Oregon's going to have a great time getting to the finals out of this pod up at the top. I think down low, the bottom half is really where everybody needs to focus. And to me, there's one matchup. I think the winner of this one matchup is the one that's going to represent that bottom half of the bracket in the finals, and that's Stanford against UCLA. Now, Stanford's 331st in experience. I have to stop betting them. I bet them all the time. I love these guys. They're young, but they just explode to the basket. They look fantastic at points, and then they look lackadaisical at points. They've won 3 conference games on the road. They're the best effective field goal percentage shooting team in the Pac-12. They're going to have no issues with clean shots against Cal. They're going to roll right into this game against UCLA. Stanford has a huge advantage over number 2 UCLA in shooting from the perimeter. The Bruins are 11th in the Pac-12 in perimeter defense. So I know there's been all this love for UCLA, but Stanford can attack them from the perimeter and get an upset victory here. And I'm going to roll with Stanford actually to come out of the bottom half. I don't like Colorado. They've lost 4 straight, including a loss to Utah. Their defense has been atrocious in steals and blocks. They're not the same team that they were 2 months ago. I don't have any love for Washington State. I don't have any love for Arizona State. I like the Stanford UCLA winner to move on to the finals. If we're going to talk about pricing, Oregon is plus 175 at Westgate, and they have a 30% chance of winning the tournament. So that number really needs to be more like plus 250 or plus 200. So it's not really a good number for Oregon at plus 175. Stanford is 12% win probability to win the Pac-12 championship. and they're being offered at 12-1. That's value. So that right there tells you that, they should have odds that are more like 8-1, 9-1. So 12-1 or better on Stanford, I think, is worth a buy. UCLA was given a 6% chance to win this tournament by Ken Pom. That makes them having 10-1 odds, where I've seen so far at Westgate and other places, there's just absolutely no value that in whatsoever. I'd consider the Bruins at 20-1. Not sure if that's going to pop up, but that's where their real value is.
Yeah, well, my motto, fuck the Ducks. I don't love this team at all. They have a great draw. They are the 1 seed. And, Peyton Pritchard is amazing. Oregon's tough in a tournament setting. You'll have Dana Altman. They'll be switching his defenses between man and zone, morphing. They'll do the pressing. But this is a team that's 18-0 in overtime games this year. They have just won so many close games. But it's a team that doesn't really defend. They're 75th in adjusted defensive efficiency. I don't think it's an elite Oregon team. I think that they'll beat the winner of Oregon State, Utah. But look, I've been high on this team all year. They're going to put it together. I am a stubborn man sometimes. I still see all the talent with Arizona. I think that they will beat Washington. They just saw that zone. That will really help. And I was going to potentially bet a Washington future as a potential sleeper, and depending on the path. But I think Arizona – look, and Arizona's a deep team. And that's going to help because they're going to have to win 4 games in 4 days. The thing that you have to keep in mind with Stanford, they're not a deep team. So that is the one worry with Stanford. Not a lot of depth. So winning 4 games in 4 days, legs could become an issue. Colorado is a deep team. They have a good bench that they can go to. All the talent is there. So Arizona and Colorado, the 5 and 6 seed, I think they're the 2 most talented teams overall. Really experienced team in Colorado, really young team in Arizona. Now, I know Colorado's been dreadful away from home, away from Boulder, and they've been on a skid here of late. But they should beat Washington State. They match up well with Arizona State. They beat Arizona State this year twice. Do you know where they beat them at? If you look at Colorado, Colorado played Arizona State twice. They didn't play either of those games at home, which you might be saying, how is that possible? Arizona State played them at home in mid-January and lost by 7. And these 2 teams actually opened up the year playing each other November 8th, I believe, in China, in Shanghai. They beat them on a neutral and on the road. So I think they match up well with them. They have enough depth, and then they could get UCLA or Stanford. So my prediction is an Arizona-Colorado championship. It might sound crazy, and maybe both teams lose in the first round. They've certainly had disappointing losses this year. But I'm sticking with my guns. Try to get in Arizona 4-1. A Colorado 5-1, plus 450, plus 350, plus 400. I'm way higher on the market on both of those teams. And I'm thinking that there's going to be some positive regression, and you're going to see positive regression for both of those teams. And I think that the cream is going to rise to the top here in the tournament, and you're going to see Arizona and Colorado make deep runs. And I really want that Arizona-Oregon rematch. I still have to eat the shoe. Don't worry, it's coming. But Arizona in the semis against Oregon, I think they get their revenge. They lost twice in overtime to Oregon. In 2 games they probably should have won, missed free throws. And so I really want that rematch. I think it's an Arizona-Colorado championship, which sounds crazy. I doubt anybody will be with me.
You're going to be a Twitter must-follow when Oregon wins again in overtime for a 3rd time.
Oh, man. I don't know what I'm going to have to eat this time. Randall, what do you got here?
Yeah, I agree with Colin on Utah covering. Oregon State's the big pillow, especially away from home. So I'll grab those points in a second. On the bottom part of the bracket, I want to go with Stanford. I do like Stanford. The problem is they do not rebound. And UCLA has been dominating the boards. Mick Cronin team, that's what they're going to do. They lost UCLA at home to Stanford by 15 way earlier in the year, but this is a totally different UCLA team. So I'm going to have a hard time putting Stanford past UCLA. I just don't see it. The value here is Colorado. I mean, even though Colorado, like you said, Stuck, they have the most talent. We were talking about Colorado being the top team in the Pac-12 for a long time. They lost 4 in a row. They've stumbled across the finish line, but they could get hot. Arizona State has done a nice job, but they still turn the ball over too much for me. I know that the metrics say they don't, but they're under 70% from the free throw line in Pac-12 play, and they get a little helter-skelter. They lost back-to-back games on the road, UCLA, USC. Then they lose at home to Washington. So I know they're flammable, but they have droughts there where they can really go without a basket for a long period of time. So I'm with you. I think the value's in Colorado there. You can get a nice odds. They get by Arizona State. They're going to play potentially UCLA, or if you like Stanford, yeah, they can absolutely make a run. And if they get hot and they match up with Oregon, we'll roll the dice and go with them there. I think the Ducks get through. I'm going to put Oregon in the finals, assuming Duarte's okay. If he's not, then that's certainly an issue. But yeah, I think the team that comes out of the bottom, if it's UCLA who keeps rolling with Mick, they pound the boards, or Colorado, can absolutely beat Oregon there. Definitely.
Yeah, then you mentioned the rebound, and that's why Colorado matches up well with Arizona State. Colorado really good on the glass. Arizona State is not. So you get a ton of second chance points and less droughts.
I think it's important to mention price too, because right now Westgate has them at plus 450, and with implied odds of a 15% chance that Colorado can win the Pac-12 tournament. You need to find a Colorado plus 550 or better, maybe a 6-1 or better. That's your purchase point on their futures. Westgate has them at plus 450, but their probability of winning this tournament is about 15%. So look for a 6-1 or better on Colorado if you're going to buy them.
Yeah, I'm a little less with my numbers, so because I'm a little higher both on Arizona and Colorado than the market. But yeah, search for the best number. At a 4-1 with Colorado or a 3-1 with Arizona, probably not worth it even with my numbers. And I'm higher on both teams. All right, so let's just go official predictions. I say Arizona beats Colorado.
I'm going to go Oregon over Stanford. I can't quit betting Stanford. I don't know what it is.
Fuck your Ducks.
I'm rolling with Mick Cronin. They're hot. I think UCLA beats Oregon.
Fuck your Ducks.